So I've been thinking about dinosaurs a lot lately. I've finally come around to watching Jurassic World 2, read a bit of the Gone manga series, and just honestly felt like absorbing myself in some good old-fashioned dinosaurity. It's been way too long since I did that anyway. I mean, who doesn't love these things? They're huge, diverse, powerful, intimidating, and quite possibly not at all what we imagine them looking like. Which obviously never stopped us from basing countless TV series, movies, and toy franchises off of them over the years. Disney, being Disney, at one point decided they wanted a piece of that pie. They already missed out on A Land Before Time. Well, Disney's flagship animated movie of that year wasn't that great. Enter the year 2000, in which Disney both set foot into the scary world of CG animation and that of animated dinosaurs with the Dinosaur. Doesn't get any more straightforward than that, although why is it only called Dinosaur though? There are far more than one as far as I know. That's like calling it Rescuer or Aristocat or Tiny. I had just about the weirdest experience with this movie growing up. I was way too young to understand what a Disney was, since I had just about the same brain capacity as the rocks in this film. I didn't connect the dots with this being the same company that brought me Winnie the Pooh and Nemo, which I would watch all the time as a toddler and afterwards never really came back to it. I just assumed it was some obscure memory I stitched together from nightmares about that one scene from A Land Before Time, you know the one. So essentially I didn't make the connection that this movie really existed because I never even actually watched it. I did, however, listen to the bootlegged coverless audiobook without labels or anything all the time and try to imagine what the story could play out in reality in my head. But I didn't associate anything with it, so to then actually watch the movie years later was just the weirdest experience to me, mainly because these dinosaurs were scary as hell. As a kid, of course, you don't make a distinction between 3D animated movies and 2D ones, they're just funny cartoons, it didn't matter to me. However, I did notice when any movie looked creepier than another or wasn't a funny cartoon, because nothing about it was funny, which was stuff like Monster House, the opening scene of Spirited Away, and this film, but mostly the opening scene of Spirited Away. Those pics were disturbing. Going back to it now, however, I have to say that I am impressed with how well the computer animated visuals still hold up, especially considering the realistic approach Disney took with this movie, something they were anything but known for at the time. I mean, this was the year 2000, the year of Titan, AE, Titanic, The Legend Goes On, and the magic pudding, what? Granted, it was also the year of a Goofy movie, one of the best Detective Conan movies, and the best Disney movie to date, but as far as realistic CG animated movies go, we were far from the quality standard we have now. What do I mean by this? Well, we still would have to wait another year before Shrek hits theaters. But what does it look like in 2018? Does this movie still hold up? What about the story? How Disney is it really? And most importantly, does it deserve the title Dinosaur? Let's find out. The movie starts off with a dinosaur herd being attacked by a Carnotaurus, causing the Parasaurolophus and all the other Pachyrhinosaurus and everyone else to flee and leave an Iguanodon egg behind. Oh, and disclaimer, there's going to be a lot of dinosaur names in this one, so be prepared for my awful pronunciation, alright? This Iguanodon egg ends up in the jungle's treetops, where it is found by a bunch of monkeys that decide to raise it as their own, even though their elder Ya seems not all too happy about this at first. Just imagine this guy's nostrils being his eyes for a second. He becomes a lot more threatening this way. These first few minutes of the movie were probably many people's first introduction to it, as it was actually also the first trailer released for it. And I would be completely on board with anyone saying that this is what got them hooked on this movie in the first place. When you look at this super cinematic opening, with the act traveling through vast and vivid landscapes with lush greens and steep downfalls along with that propelling music, you can't help but get excited, especially considering this is a Disney film and this is not something they had been known for at this point. And then the second half comes along.
What you need is a little help from the love monkey.
There is nothing I love about this monkey. Our Iguanodon baby, now named Aladar, grows up with the monkey family and they all live a seemingly peaceful life until in the sky they see a massive meteor shower illuminating the earth. Fascinated by this spectacle, Aladar doesn't realize its impact is already about to hit the herd in time. And so they all end up being hit by the meteor's shockwave in one of the most thrilling and beautifully animated scenes in the movie, with effects that still hold up very well. Just look at the detail on Aladar's skin as it's being illuminated illuminated by the radiation in the water. It's also detailed and realistic looking, especially for its time. It only highlights the dramatic effect this event has had on these characters and makes it all seem so much more intimidating, especially as Aladar looks back on what used to be their home and realizes that now it is all gone. It's a beautiful moment that sets the tone for the rest of the movie perfectly. The herd, however, doesn't give up and embarks on a new path where they are being attacked by a bunch of velociraptors, my personal favorite dinosaur, that chase them into a sandstorm where they find another herd of a whole bunch of other copy-pasted dinosaurs just doing their thing, just doing the dinosaur.
Watch it!
Dude, I think that was my love interest for this movie. So they decide to join the herd, and so we are introduced to a whole bunch of other characters. The bad guy, an old lady, another bad guy, an old lady, and a dog with its main character trait, dog. For the most part, this little group has an interesting enough dynamic for the rest of the movie. They aren't anything outstanding by any means, but they get the job done. That, of course, being that it lets us be invested in their lives, and each of them has some quirky personality trait that justifies this as a silly family film amidst all the other mayhem we are about to encounter. Like these bully guys here, for example. These are Crone and Bruton, the former of which being the stern and egotistical leader of the herd that just so happens to also be the brother of Nira, the girl from earlier.
That's how my brother treats newcomers, no matter how charming they are.
Dude, like, legit, I think that's my love interest. When the herd gets moving again the following day for a long and troublesome trip through the desert, we get a glimpse of the real big boys around here, following closely behind them. The gang does not get bothered by that yet, however, as they have found what they believe to be the oasis, until they have to find out that all of it has dried out a long time ago. When all hope seems lost, Aladar is not ready to give up yet, and digging through the dried out land manages to find what they have been looking for all this time. Bruton, whom Crone has sent out to look for water beforehand, however, gets attacked by the Carnotaurus we've seen before. But I mean, he's a bad guy, we don't care about him. Let's show Aladar have an awkward conversation with Nira over here. When Bruton gets back to the herd though, they realize they now have to quickly evacuate, but because the elderly can't keep up with the pace of the rest, they have to slowly follow suit in a separate group. That late at night, when everyone else is already far ahead, finds a wounded Bruton they decide to take care of. Moments like these are always some of my favorite, when our main characters get to bond with what they previously assumed to be their enemy over either a shared threat, or in this case also because they now actually have an advantage over them, and yet decide to help them get back on their feet. It's a sweet moment that, due to the rain in the background, gives it a great atmosphere and a great deal of character development for like 2 minutes. When Aladar is about to get brutally attacked by the Carnotaurus, Bruton, in a final move of redemption, manages to trap them inside the cave along with himself. So all the Carnotaurus are trapped, except for one. Hint hint, wink wink. The rest of the group, seemingly untouched by the horror they have just witnessed, come across a dead end in the cave and are just about to go back when the
Love monkey
happens to find an entry through the cave. With the help of the oldest of the group, they manage to break through the stone wall and on the other side find the nesting ground they have been looking for all along. They jump and dance and swim about and finally feel safe. Could we ban this thing from the movie, please? So you think the movie would be over, right? Oh, no, 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 no. No, no, no. Just like in my favorite 1932 romantic comedy, There is Trouble in Paradise, when Ima, that's her, discovers that the valley they used to go through to get here is blocked by rocks as well. Aladar goes to try and find a way to the other side to warn the rest of the herd, who in the meantime are being pushed by Crone to climb over. Aladar wants them to walk around it though, and thereby defies Crone's orders, which makes him mad. So mad in fact that the two of them start a fight in front of the others, only to then get stopped by Nira, who finally also defies her brother's commands. Crone of course is in absolute shock over this, which gets portrayed absolutely beautifully through all the little twitches in his body and sudden movements in his eyes that swell up and down again. It's surprisingly touching, and again only goes to show how much emotion they managed to put into even these gigantic beasts, that now all decide to follow along with Aladar to the other side of the mountain. When the Carnotaurus from earlier then starts to attack the group, it is also him that makes a stand and gets all the other dinosaurs to try and intimidate him away. What is it exactly they are doing here? here. When it finally looks like the attack has worked, however, the Carnotaurus notices an outcasted crone still struggling to climb up the hill and decides to attack him instead. Aladar and Nira push the Carnotaurus over the edge, but it is too late for Crone, who didn't even get to say goodbye to his sister, which I feel like could have made this moment a lot more emotional. Next thing you know, they already have kids of their own and everyone in their little family is as happy as they will ever be, until the entire species gets wiped out in what I'm assuming to be just a couple of days. But hey, at least we still get a quite impressive shot of the nesting grounds and now the movie has a narrator, I guess. This truly is a Disney film, isn't it? And that concludes my little memory lane down to Dinosaur, one of the most overlooked Disney animated movies to ever exist. But does it truly deserve the title of a hidden gem? Well, in some ways I would say so, yes. Like I said, the animation holds up surprisingly well, with some beautiful landscape shots of wherever they were at, extremely well done textures on all the dinosaurs' skins, and far better done emotions than what Disney is about to give us a few years later. But unfortunately, this one also in some regards suffers the same fate as something like Chicken Little, in that parts of it can look a bit washed out and unappealing to the eye. Over time, Disney's movies definitely got better at this. Now everything looks far bouncier and more fun, whereas this one has a more documentary-esque feel to it that I could totally get if people were turned off by it when they first saw it. In return, I feel like the score to this one helped a lot of the more cinematic scenes to stand out even more. That was definitely one of my highlights, and you have to also admit that it's admirable just how spot on all the designs were, even if they definitely cut corners at some points in the film. Some parts of the movie were a bit cliche, with our main character Aladar being your typical dreamy, lovable goofball, and Nira being just as generic a love interest, but the other characters definitely help in making this cast feel far more memorable than you would expect with these character designs. The story is alright, it's nothing too fancy and not worth mentioning in particular, but I still feel like this was a solid experience that had enough good parts to justify its existence. I mean, I definitely enjoyed it more than The Good Dinosaur, that's for sure. Okay, one last thing. While I was researching music to use for this video, I came across a YouTube playlist with the soundtrack for the Dreamcast video game of this movie, and the first video you get when clicking on this playlist is just all the dialogue in the game at once, and it's just the funniest thing ever.
I'll take that. Hey! Bonus!
Here I go. My turn. Ready to go. Yes?
I can't last much longer like this. I need some food. I feel weak.